Hello and welcome to ATARC's webinar series. Today we will be discussing the Integrated Value Network, also known as IVN, with the ATARC Growing Good in Government Working Group Leadership Team. My name is Kirsten Katsaruba and I have the pleasure of moderating today's webinar. ATARC stands for the Advanced Technology Academic Research Center, and ATARC is an organization that facilitates collaboration between government, industry, and academia in order to accelerate technology modernization initiatives. We provide ongoing opportunities for cross-agency collaboration through on-site interaction, learning, and market research. This afternoon, we are going to hear from each of our panelists, and we will have some time for Q&A in between our scheduled brief IVN demo. I would now like to ask our panelists to please come on camera and come off mute because we're going to begin with a quick round of introductions. So Basil, if you could please intro yourself first.
Hello, hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm Basil White. I'm with the U.S. Department of Agriculture in MRPBS. And I'm a new USDA employee, but I've been working on this program for several years now, and I'm really looking forward to today's presentation.
Fantastic. And then next we have Beth, if you could introduce yourself next.
Good afternoon. My name is Beth Martin. I'm with the Office of Personnel Management. I'm a digital services expert, and I'm also the G3I Vice Chair.
Great. And last but not least, we have Jason.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jason Triquare. I am the Mission Area Senior Program Manager for the Marketing and Regulatory Programs Mission Area. I am in charge of promoting and implementing a Program Management Improvement Accountability Act and following up, and the work that we're doing here is actually promoting most of what we're trying to do in the program project management space. So really happy to have everybody here today.
Fantastic. So to kick things off, I want to turn it over to Basil. If you could update our audience on how this effort came into being in the first place. So a little bit on the background, the past of IVN.
Thank you, Kirsten. Yes, I started this work in value integration back in 2007 when I was with the Department of Veterans Affairs, and the deputy CIO sent me to help with some of the problems that had occurred at Walter Reed Army Medical Center at that time. Some significant problems with the provision of care, the coordination of care between the VA and the Department of Defense, and the coordination of benefits, related to helping wounded warriors. We had a lot of requirements from a lot of people, requirements from the president's commissions, the Senate, special interest groups like Disabled American Veterans and Veterans of Foreign Wars. So we had this threshold of these requirements that people wanted us to meet. And over here on the other side, we had a list of these wounded warrior related programs, benefits, coordination of care, compensation, and programs that were both on the VA side and the DoD side. And so we had a huge challenge to communicate what programs that we had and how to coordinate those programs to improve the experience of these wounded warriors and their families, and also figure out who we needed in the room to make the changes that we needed to make to those policies and plans. So I worked with a few people, and together we built a library, with Excel, sort of a card catalog that would sort all these requirements and show how they aligned to the programs that we had in a way that we could trust without bias. So people could see, okay, these are all the requirements from this stakeholder, and this is everything that we do regarding that. So we know who to bring in the room to have what discussion. We did that for a few years and made some significant revisions, changed the scope of the VA and the DoD and joint VA-DoD strategic plans. After that, I came back to VA and I started applying this design to other major muscle movements in our policies and plans. We used it to assist our POTUS transition, the transition of the president-elect. We used it to create new strategic plans and performance measures. We used it to revise enterprise-wide policies and create a few policies and concepts from scratch. We used it to put a more human face on our legislative proposals to show how changing legislation could actually improve the VA's capacity to provide care to veterans and their families. We used it to break out new public laws. Public laws change regulations. Some people own some policies related to that, so we were able to kind of pin the button on some people with that. And then I started partnering with Beth Martin, one of my colleagues here today, and she's an adjunct professor, and so she and I worked together on some research papers and industry papers. A few of them we can share with you. And she's taken on more of the role of product development, user experience, customer experience, and she leads the academic piece of this and also the human design centered piece.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Now I want to turn it over to Jason and then Beth so we can get an update on the current situation. What is the IVN? Why is USDA implementing it now? And some other things. So Jason, over to you.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Well, for my colleagues in the audience, we are frequently met with complexity when a new law is created, or, something that may be countermanding in another organization makes us think about how we are delivering on mission. And we have been in that kind of paralyzed state until, I think, until we met Beth and Basil, to be honest with you, because the IVN and to USDA, to me at USDA, it really is the first step in deconflicting all of the stuff that we all are concerned with, right? The laws, the regulations, the policies, the CFRs, this stuff changes rapidly. So, you get to a point or to a breaking point where you have to look around and say, this is just madness. We need to figure out a better way to do it. And the IVN really is that better way of just doing business and coordinating requirements, especially in program project management. So for us, it's about taking the heuristics and all of the good work that Basil and Beth has done at the portfolio layer and figuring out and working with them and hopefully the industry and academia in the audience to figure out how we build that futuristic model of the IVN, how we incorporate other things like benefits, like requirements, like strategic alignment, those types of things. So as far as we're concerned, this is the first step. We've been at this for about 2 years at USDA, right? Kind of churning and burning, and having a huge volunteer base helping us to this point. And what we've been able to do is create an inventory of a good percentage of the documents for a program. And the program that we're focusing on is the feral swine program. And what we're trying to do is take all of that good work and the heuristics and apply it to a program and then build out that inventory from that program. So, future leaning more of a scaling opportunity, but initially implementing the IVN as it was implemented at VA.
Thanks, Jason. Beth, let's hear from you next.
So the networking that we do as we build the relationships in the IVN, we also have the benefit of relationships with people who understand what we're doing. And I just want to call out a few friends of the IVN, including Paul Quimby, which without Paul, we wouldn't be where we are now. And also Kik Piney, who's also in attendance. So Kik is very well known, and I hope Kik will speak up. He's joining us from overseas, so really excited to see him joining us. But to speak to where we are going now that we have a home for scaling up the IVN, and we are training people on how to make those relationships. We have interns, we have detailees, we have volunteers. And we have 3 main aspects that we are training them to learn and appreciate so that they can diffuse that innovation within their own organizations. And the first one is just how to communicate, how to wrap your arms around the portfolio of things that your organization is responsible for. So that's what we have been mapping for quite some time now. And since Jason mentioned the feral swine portfolio, we are now getting down to the project level and eventually, the program level. I might be switching that around, Jason, I'm sorry. But we're getting to the program and project level. So once we establish those relationships between, there's an executive order which requires a directive about how to run a program, for example, or there's a law that impacts how we do something, we're able to communicate how all of those things are related. And then we can start to collaborate because now we know who we're working with, who might be relying on that network that we are establishing, and how some other organization that we didn't know we needed to work with, we can now be collaborating better. And through that, we can make change. For example, if there's a pending legislation that might affect how we run our programs, or changes that affect the mandates that we have, we can incorporate that, and then we can look to the other side to see everything that relates to that, and communicate and collaborate with those folks to let them know that there are changes afoot, and perhaps we might want to come back and see what we need to do.
Thanks, Beth. And Basil, do you have anything else to add in regards to the future before we jump into our demo?
Certainly, thank you. I want to support Beth's mention about the capability of IVN to communicate, coordinate, and change. We do have a Q&A. I guess we'll hold that for after the demo. You know, I've been in the USDA for 7 weeks in marketing, regulatory programs, business services, but I do have one anecdote. I was talking about the IVN to a lady who is a pork inspector at a plant at a slaughterhouse, and she said that one of the plant managers told her that, you know, they're not going to wash the floor every day. They're going to clean the floor every other day, and which contradicted her instructions. And she said, well, the instructions say you have to do that. And the manager said, yeah, but we can't find any regulations that say that we have to do that. So, and she was stumped because she said, you know, these instructions that I give, they're based on instructions that were handed to me when I started this job. I have no idea what the trace is of from this instruction to any sort of policy or regulation that empowers me to give these instructions. And so I can't tell whether, I have no idea whether to trace this either. And, you know, we continue talking, and I said, you know, if heaven forbid someone got sick and that became a lawsuit and that went to court, there's a really decent chance, I'm not a lawyer, but I would bet odds there would be a good chance that pork factory would win the case, because they could say, well, your own employee did not know the regulatory trace of authority. How are we expected to know that? So that's been, you know, that's something I keep thinking of when I explain this. It's something that drives me to do this at the USDA, is that, you know, we need to democratize policy analysis. We do a lot of decision support about policies and plans to leadership, but it's these people down at the program level who need the help. You know, it's people trying to get, you know, grants done and bids and that sort of thing. You know, they're the ones that we need to empower to communicate the alignment of these programs and regs, and, you know, how things, you know, add value to each other, and coordinate with the people, find out who their stakeholders are, to work together and build this basis of evidence to make changes, you know, in policies and plans. Where I think it can affect in the future is, I think that this can create a win-win for government proposals. I think it will hold us as federal employees accountable for saying, you know, we'd like you to respond to this request, and this request isn't just is to do this sort of thing and achieve this state, but there's also goals and performance plans and measures and risks, and, you know, there's this whole body of evidence that we've neglected to share. That I believe, and on the other side, you know, people who request these grants or grant proposals, or people who do bids, can be empowered to say, this is what we think is going to be an effective solution for the government. And oh, by the way, here's how it connects with the things that the Secretary of the Army wants, or the president wants. That sort of. Yes. Yes.
I think we have some questions that the audience.
If we're ready to answer questions, well, we can do
Yes.
that right now. Or if we're going to have to do that, okay, let's do it. Thank you.
All right. Yep. So we had a question come in from David Angeletti, and Basil, if you want to go ahead and start pulling up the demo.
Certainly.
Like Beth or Jason was interested in answering these. So who would like to respond to that? Beth, do you want to respond first?
I just put in a plug for Kick's book, which heavily influenced our work, just as a reference for everyone to have that. But I know Jason has more to add.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I'm sorry, I don't know how to navigate this thing. So I think I accidentally hit the answer live button. I don't know how to actually operate that. So Beth's answer is fantastic. And I appreciate David's question. So the idea of the IVN and how we're relating information to one another is more about structuring information and less having to do with program and project management. To your point, the capabilities and the capacity that the IVN generates by making these associations assists in better governance of programs and projects. So do I see it long-term being part of a standard as widely adopted as PMBOK? I can only hope.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, David, for the question. And Basil, let's turn it back over to you for the last 15 minutes of our demo.
Thank you, Kirsten. So really quick, this is what the data set looks like, at least in the Excel version. So this is how it works. So like I said, remember I was talking about all those important stakeholders on the right. They wanted to know, what they had their own requirements and their goals that they wanted us to do. Well, this is sort of that stuff over the right. This is, US code and regulations and plans and the White House's Office of Management and Budget, and some of the larger pieces of USD policies and plans. And then over here on the left is we have sort of the more of the program level stuff. There's some things that are rather large here as well, but these tend to be of smaller scope. So you've got all kinds of program directives, some budget notes, and a couple of other plans and things like that. So one of the things so again, 3 goals. We want to communicate, coordinate, and change. So the communication piece is, let's just say someone wants to know what's everything that we do about the customer experience. Okay, so we can find all. Okay, so this is all the stuff that we do that relates to customer experience. So we could even filter this down. We could type customer, if I can spell, experience. Okay. We could do that, and we could say, okay, our customer experience stuff delivers on these pieces of code. So in case we want to rationalize or explain this to in the context of legislation, we can do it that way. Also, so we can filter these things down. Also, data, let me see. We could filter these down to a particular stakeholder. Let's just say we want to show like OMB. Here's everything that we do that responds to OMB. Well, we can go through that, filter these down, and we can say, okay, well, these are the directives that relate to that. So that's how the data set works. Now, this is a very limited public version of the data set that only has alignments that were available in these public documents. So that is a quick tour of the data set, how that works. So the way we create this data is we look at all of these governance documents. Let me clean this up a little bit. Data clear. Okay. So we go to all of these we go to all these documents and we break them out and find all the deliverables in them. Okay. So these are all the deliverables on the right side. These are all the documents and the deliverables on the left. And so we go one at a time and we crosswalk. If we deliver this thing on the left, is it more than likely to deliver the thing on the right? And we answer that over and over and over again. And as a result, we have this body of interdependencies of requirements, which allow us again to build some very useful insights about how these things relate and how to coordinate, the implementation of these programs and how to use this as a basis of evidence for change. So once we do all that, we pour it into a document that we provide to a client who is going to create a policy or a plan or a program or some piece of governance documents. So we take these, we put all these alignments in here, and we go through one at a time. Once we figure out how they're all aligned, we will create a recommendation based on all the alignments that we found about this particular deliverable. What do we think we need to do to communicate that alignment? how to leverage, how to coordinate the alignment of these things to provide more net value, and then how to change them. Say that, these alignments are what we want. So when we create this, when the client creates their new governance document, they know that there's a gap that they need to fill. And, after that, we just put it up on a table, we put the, we show the gaps, and then we, put in recommendations. And we have a summary for, leadership summary about what the, the large areas are that they need to do. And as a result of this, in my prior, in my prior life, we did some really significant muscle movements. We changed budgets, we changed how we train nurses, we changed the suicide prevention program, we reverse engineered a concept of operations. So this has some really strong movements because it's the criteria are very high for whether things align or not. So this provides a basis of evidence for policymaking that's easy to trust. It's easy to understand. If and when we get to apply artificial intelligence to this, it will work and connect in ways that that people will understand. So that's really important, that when we do these, that people trust and believe them and understand them. So that's that. And then the way we show people how to do this, and we're going to share this as well, is that we have a SOP that explains, the background, sort of where this came from, how it relates to, the U.S. Constitution and everything in between, the sources that come, where they come from, how to do the links, how to build reports, and all of that. So subject to your questions, that's really all I had to provide in the demo today.
Great, thank you. So for our audience, if you do have any questions you'd like to ask, please send them in before we run out of time here. Jason or Beth, anything else to add to the demonstration that you wanted to share, but maybe didn't have time for earlier?
Well, I'll just share that the demo that Basil has provided, we have that available for anybody who wants it. So I believe Amy will coordinate getting that shared to everybody. And we're more than happy to have you join our LinkedIn group. So if you want to message me or Jason, we're happy to add you to that. We just need to connect with you on LinkedIn.
Great, thank you, Beth. Anything from you, Jason?
I think that, thank you, Basil, for the demonstration. I mean, we have some visualizations that we've put together that we can also provide. But the moral of the story here is that, one is that we are pulling this off without any real directed funding, right? So if you are an agency or a civilian organization or a nonprofit, and you are hamstrung by not having funding, let's say, by doing this work, you are enabling yourself to find partners and connections with other people, to understand how you can work together to create solutions to your shared capability gaps. And that is the first steps that we're starting to make here that really prove out what we're trying to do. The particular organization that we're working with now, they get a lot of their funding from the states, right? So it's a lot of demand from the states and understanding how you coordinate among a wide group of stakeholders. And a tool like the IVN really starts to give you sense making. It gives you this ability to bring people in non-adversarially, right? Where these are all of our requirements. So, it's very neutral. This is a tool that enables you to really start to get past the histrionics of your organization and get to the brass tacks of actually improving each of your situations as you go forward. So just want to make that last plug. This really is a fundamental and foundational kind of idea that I think will start to resonate more broadly across the government.
Awesome. It looks like a lot of the chats coming through are just around continuing to connect. So like Beth mentioned, over on LinkedIn, a great chance to, connect with these folks online. We also have a working group, which I think ATARC is going to share a slide here about how to get connected with that. Another audience member writes in asking if anyone is, if IVN is attending ACHE. Basil, do you have a response for this attendee? You're muted.
I'm sorry, I do not, but I have asked for details about that. I'm open to present. We'll take that back to the group and find out what that is and what we can. But we're giving we've given several presentations on this, and they've been well received. We're speaking at the University of Maryland in April, so we're open to do that. We just have to get the details down.
That's great. And then probably one more question that we have time for is Olivia writing in. She says, great demo. What have you found has proven most helpful for demonstrating this approach's value for decision makers? So how to build up and get buy-in from the stakeholders?
I can answer that, perhaps supplemented with Basil. The decision makers are the beneficiaries of the recommendations that come out of that. So it is a valuable resource that can give you insight that may not be available otherwise. That would require a lot of man hours to compile, to develop a comprehensive response. So one of the benefits is the very quick turnaround, and Basil has a really great story to share about that. But the quick turnaround to get very, very good comprehensive responses is probably one of the main benefits, and also to see where those overlaps are. In addition to that, the decision makers who need this information rely on people who are able to parse out that work, and such a resource enterprise-wide can be used by anybody. As Jason might talk about, it democratizes access to that information. It is a repository, and you can answer a lot of different kinds of questions with different levels of depth. And I think that's one of the really powerful selling points for that. Basil?
Just to tag on that, three things. There's research speed, there's a way it assists the creators of programs, and how it helps them in resource battles. I mean, the first one, research speed, someone will ask a question, a very large open-ended question. What are you doing about training nurses or something like that? And we will light up the building. We'll all try to come up with those answers, and we'll aggregate them into a single response, and we'll send that response to the stakeholder who wanted to know it. And all of that business intelligence dies on the vine because there's been nowhere to store it, because we all built it organically. So there's nowhere for it to live. It lives now. And now we can do those reports in about an hour and a half. Another way in which it helps program creators is it gives you the credibility of being able to show and prove that your idea for how you want to change people, money, and things to achieve a goal is rationally based on the environment of the policies and the plans and the laws that you interact with. There's lots of stories about unintended consequences. This finds those, and it actually turns them into intended consequences before you spend the money. And for helping resource battles, I did help someone reverse engineer a program office. And it was time for her and her peers to go in front of a person with very high up and talk about how much people, money, and things they were going to need for the year. So there was this resource battle, and people would say, I need these people, money, and things to do my thing, and this is what we're going to do for you. And it was her turn, and she said, these are the people, money, and things, these resources that I need to create this new program based on evidence. And here is how that program is going to deliver on the priorities of your boss. Here's how the program is going to deliver on the priorities of the disabled American veterans and the president and all these other stakeholders that you care about. So you can actually reach up and through the immediate requirements of what you're trying to deliver on, and have some really sort of evidence-based mindfulness in what you create and what you communicate.
Excellent, thank you. So with about a minute left, I do just want to plug the Growing Good in Government Working Group. If you enjoyed this content, the working group meets March 20th from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern time. And if you want to get involved, you can just email Amy. Her email is up on the screen, and you'll be able to continue this conversation here. So really want to thank all of you panelists at home for attending, and our panelists and our attendees for attending. This has been a really wonderful half hour. So thanks, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Have a good one, everybody.
Bye.